I'm Ari Graff. Welcome to The Whack. This is where I talk to coaches, therapists, healers, or anyone I want to talk to and find out what their wake up call in life was. What was the thing that whacked you upside the head and led to your transformation? So, again, I'm your host, Dr. Ari Graff. I'm a coach dedicated to helping people transform their lives. So I've always been trying to understand the hidden reasons people do what they do and how some people radically change their lives for the better. And how I can turn that into something I can teach other people. So I'm here today with a friend of mine and a fellow coach, Coach Tim Watts. So, Tim, you and I have known each other for several months. Can you give us a little bit of your background, how you became a coach, where you live?
Yeah, absolutely. Good to be here. Thanks, Ari. Tim Watts. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I certified in coaching with Dr. Glover and No More Mr. Nice Guy this past fall. And whack is such a perfect way to describe it. It was just like one day I'm living my life with my journey, and the next I'm whacked upside the head with the nice guy stuff and the syndromes that come out of that. And it impacted me so fully. I'll tell you, I was kind of already on this path, not knowing where I was going to take it, and it impacted me enough that I reached out to Dr. Glover and learned about his workshop, TPI, and coaching certification, and stepped into that fully.
Okay, so describe your version of the nice guy syndrome. What's
Yeah.
what's your
So,
flavor of nice guy?
ooh, well, I'm definitely the one that didn't get my needs met as a kid. I'm definitely the one that buried that deep, and in adulthood, I walked around thinking I had so much figured out, all the while retreating, being scared, being insecure, right? Things that start at a fundamental level, but manifest in adulthood, and you go, why, what, where, how? My flavor of nice guy was the nice guy, the smiling, happy, I'll be everybody's friend with covert contracts all over the place. And the expectation that because I am that way, the rest of the world will be that way to me. Now, the delicate thing for me too is when this comes to light, is not to jump right into eradicating it, right? There's this fine balance of saying, hey, I can still be an open-minded, curious, happy, nice, positive guy with intention, with consciousness, right? Making decisions to embody that myself and be the best I can be, instead of, right, the syndrome that comes in and says, hide behind this, right? Manipulate this. Do whatever it takes to avoid yourself so that you can outwardly appear to be what you always want to be. So, having that come to the surface helped me sort of clean out the closet, so to speak, wipe the slate clean and say, no, this is how I want to arrange the pieces of my life. And this is the authentic person I want to be.
So you really adopted a conscious kind of outlook on life, that you're going to make decisions about the kind of life that you want to lead. So, all right. So can you tell us what was the big stick for you? It, what was the thing that whacked you upside the head?
Yeah, that's a great question. Everybody has a story. Mine is definitely wrapped up in a period of my life, a huge chapter in my life, in which the best way to describe it is that I was unconscious. One in which I approached my marriage a certain way, my career a certain way. And as I look back in hindsight, I was a yes man, a people pleaser, and I had a job that I absolutely hated. And I was in a marriage where both of us kind of came to the table with our traumas and our toxicities, and it was just a terrible mix. Um, and I bring up the marriage because it was a catalyst for me. But I want to make it clear that in my journey, I've learned forgiveness, and I've adopted introspection in a way that I can say, hey, I wasn't in a marriage with a person that treated me like dog shit. Now here I am cleaning up the pieces. This was a marriage in which I also came to the table with a bunch of bullshit, right? I laid it down and thought that that was the way to be. And so, part of that forgiveness was me saying, I'm not that guy anymore. I forgive myself as well. So, um,
So did you go through a period of just viewing your spouse as the problem?
I did. And thank you for asking that question because I think that didn't help me at all. Right. I'm going to tell you with the type of life that I live, the intention, the consciousness, these parts and pieces that make me up, victimhood has no place. And I lived that way for a while and it showed me some things. Right. Again, as I wiped the slate clean, it showed me parts that I didn't want.
So what was the nadir for you? What was
Yeah.
your lowest point?
Yeah. Yeah. So after my divorce, this is about 6 years ago. After my divorce, I went on that, what they call it, the rebound, the rebound phase. And the culmination of a year of that was I was grossly overweight. I was smoking, drinking, eating fast food every day for every meal, only frozen food in the fridge, right? So I looked around at this life that I had after this rebound. I had a procrastination problem. I had an addiction problem to substances, pornography. And the spark that hit me was really just, I remember very clearly, I was laying in bed one day and it was probably a weekend morning, a Saturday morning. The sun was up and I looked around my room and my house at piles of clean clothes, messes of clean or dirty, this or that. And I looked around and I said, what am I doing? It really just kind of hit me like that. What am I doing? And as a single man now, what could I do? And I
So
don't
it
mean
was
to
the
imply
clean
that
clothes.
it was the
Wasn't dirty clothes. It was
procrastination,
the clean.
right? So doesn't that expose such bullshit, right? If it was piles of dirty clothes, we could all say, oh, all right, I'm still in college mindset, right? Dirty clothes on the ground, whatever. They were clean, right? I was taking these steps to manage my house and be a single parent. But I couldn't get past that. We'll just fold them and put them away. Now, of course, in hindsight, I can come back and say those are trauma responses. But at the time, I just thought, why can't I just will myself to stand up out of this bed, fold that fucking pile of shirts and put it away, right? And that was a problem for me. So, anyway, long story short, I thought, what could I do to change my life? And I went to Audible and started looking up books, audiobook. Everyone's talking about podcasts and stuff. And this is a funny story. I looked up how to fix procrastination. That literally is the search term that changed my life. And the first book
Okay, if you're
recommended,
listening to this, how how
I
to
hope
fix
there's
procrastination?
I hope there's better search results nowadays because what I got was not anything related to procrastination, but it was Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And I can only assume that some meta tag said procrastination is a time issue, the power of now is a time book. I have no idea. And this came up and I downloaded it right away. And I listened to it about 3-4 chapters in. And I honestly, I was lost. I had no fucking idea what he was saying. So I put the book down. I thought, this is beautiful content. His voice is amazing. I got used to it. But what is he talking about? Trees outside the window who don't have a concept of times, or, a time or a clock. And it didn't sit right with me. I didn't know it. I didn't understand it. Anyhow, I did pick the book up again about a year later, right? So we're talking about just these periods of time where I had intention, but no action. I picked it up about a year later and just, how do you describe it? Expansion of the mind, consciousness, comprehension, understanding. It hit me like a ton of bricks and I couldn't read that, or listen to that book fast enough. So yeah, anyway, it was a lot of stuff that actually rang true for me. I remember, again, as a kid, musing about, is there actually time? What does the future and the past look like? If I'm standing here right now in this exact time, does that mean the 3 seconds from now me is standing right next to me, just a little to the side, right? And what happens if I move forward in time? Do I bump into him? These kinds of things. And the way Tolle
I
explains
gotta admit,
time.
I actually haven't read the book.
Oh,
I'm
okay. All
putting
right.
that out
Well,
there.
I don't, I won't dive into it
But
too much, but
I am familiar with existential questioning.
yeah, yeah.
So keep going.
Yeah, yeah, and it was enough to not say, "Here's how you're going to change all of your life, and here's the roadmap for you," but it was enough to jostle my mind and give me one of my favorite gifts, which is the power to shift perspective, I think, is a good way to put that, and it's the way to say, "This may be the way I've always thought about something, but as an open-minded individual, what if it was this way? Or what if it was that way? What if it was upside down and backwards and red and gray and blue and whatnot?" So that book was powerful for that. And again, I caution people, who are in this realm of self help of thinking that they're going to find a person or a book or resource that gives them the roadmap. It's about how do you cultivate the resources that you have so that you become a sustainable, growth minded individual. So yeah, um, so I'd keep going.
Yeah. So there was something about that book that it clicked where you were more able to take on other perspectives, and were you not seeing yourself as a victim as much anymore, or how would you put it? How did your perspective shift at that point?
I again have a very clear memory of one specific story that was in that book, and I'll tell this one quickly. But he talks about the village that brings this. There's a set of parents that have a daughter, and she's pregnant. And she accuses the neighbors. They go to the neighbor and they say, "How could you have done this to this child?" And this man who's full of zen and peace says, "Is that so?" Okay, well, she has the baby. They give the baby to the man and say, "This is yours now. This was your responsibility. Raise the child." "Is that so?" He says. So he raises the child. Years later, the woman, the daughter, confesses it wasn't him. She was lying. She was scared. She didn't know what to do. Oh my God, the village goes back and profusely apologizes. We should take the child back from you now. It doesn't belong to you. And here's what happened. In my mind, I'm anticipating the end of the story where she tells them, "You don't deserve to have this child now," right? I'm anticipating this type of an ending. His response was, "Is that so?" And they take the child and leave. Not one part of that entire story affected this man's life, right? And truly, I got goosebumps when that hit and everything changed for me. I thought, oh wow, yes, I can stop being a victim. I can truly choose my response in a moment. So
So
yeah.
that was an awakening moment
Yeah.
that whacked you upside the head.
Absolutely. Right. Subtle, uh, small, but wholly impactful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think something that we talk about, like in the Integration Nation community, or people who are fans of No More Mr. Nice Guy, is how powerful one book can be. How
Yeah.
much change can come out of one book, or even you're describing one story in one book can shift someone's whole life. So it's really amazing. And how can we use that power even more?
Well, that's a fantastic question. I think that's like the question, right? If you think the way to continue this trajectory is to find more stories and more, I think, right? More roadmaps and more books. Well, gosh, I know a lot of people, clients even, who could recommend 100 awesome books to me, yet they're still stuck. So what's the solution? And so I think the question is one that comes
So
to light
so it's not
through
not about a book.
no, no, no. Yeah. It's what Alan Watts might call the guru, not a person, not a situation, not a resource specifically, but all of those things that show you a door and say, can you walk through this with courage and with conviction? And so those books, like you're pointing out, a book, a story, a situation, in this instance for me, served as a guru, something that stood up and said, here's a potential, here's a possibility. What will you do with it? So,
And you were at a certain point of life. Um, uh, would you say it also related to being at a low point?
absolutely. That's a great question too. I think most of the stories I've listened to of people that I look up to who've made change describe that rock bottom, that low point situation, right, as a springboard into powerful growth. And I think it's true as, you could tell me better than I know, given your background, but it's true that human beings, as comfort seeking creatures, are not going to make change if they're happy and comfortable and copacetic, right? And so it takes like a big stick, a whack, a moment, a low point to smack somebody across the head. Yeah. And
So we actually need to view low points as a gift. That
100%. Yeah.
that's the point when we're going to be most open to change and most open to being whacked.
Exactly. You could call it desperation. I did. I called it a manifestation of desperation at the time. One in which I didn't like who I was. Yeah, I was receptive. Yeah, people are receptive at that point. And so it's a beautiful gift.
Yeah, I mean, every day I feel more and more grateful that my ex-wife ended our marriage. So that was so painful at the time, but it's given me a new lease on life and opened up all these opportunities. I wouldn't be doing men's work. I think I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if it wasn't for that. So I'm grateful. I'm genuinely grateful every day.
That's an amazing way to put that. I like your phrase. It's a new lease on life. Sure. And gratitude is again, if I look at my tool bag, my powerful tools, gratitude is one that I love. So it's a good one. And, I'm similar to you
Right.
in that
So
regard. I would not have ended my marriage, no matter how rock bottom it felt at the time. So she did, and that was a beautiful gift.
I think this is probably something we've both learned as recovering nice guys is that tendency to cling to a relationship even if it's not serving us.
Dr. Glover calls it a bad ender, being a bad ender, right?
Yeah. So yeah, nobody teaches us how to end relationships except him. Um, so was that your only whack? Was there another whack, or was that was that the most important whack?
Um, I, I do want to throw this into the mix as well. I talked about my marriage, but I was in one of the worst jobs of my life at the time as well. So, this is important to bring up for me anyway, and for my story. It's a moment where I was making the least amount of money ever, being asked the most of by a boss that didn't appreciate me and was using me up. And the financial aspect is important for me because that was a motivator. When, I'm a single parent and I opened my fridge and I did not have food to feed my children. And now I did not have a lot of food, right? It was frozen nuggets in the freezer, but a fridge full of condiments only. And I looked at that and to me, that was unacceptable. And so that was a whack. How do I make it change? How do I proactively start changing my career and my situation so I don't just jump into another low paying shitty job again? So
What were you doing at the time?
I'm in technology and the job was in technology. It was a career in design for a startup company. Work that I'd done before and work that I've done since. I just think it was the working environment. Share the quick story of how I got this job. I actually was out of work. My marriage was on the rocks. I knew it was going to come to an end. And I was interviewing left and right. And I sat with this job. I told him what I expected to get paid. And without skipping a beat, he says, okay, well, we'll offer you half as much. And without skipping a beat, I said, okay. And that's a moment that I go back and replay in my head over and over and over again. There was no negotiation. There was no standing up for what I thought I was worth. I was just saying, I need this. I'm desperate. I will take anything.
So you took a job that paid half as much?
As what I wanted. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But
And it
just
was
just getting out was liberating?
very, all right, I'll share that story with you sometime. I don't know if we have time. It was one of my favorite stories ever. But when I left that job, it was with intention.
Okay. That's a big tease, you know.
Yeah.
Um, all right, we'll save that for part two.
Part two. Yeah.
So how do you, how have you kept your transformation going from that big stick point?
It's my energy. And it's not necessarily something that I'm gifted with that others don't have. It's that I became aware of how my body utilizes energy, and I started listening to that. And I started putting it in places that I wanted to put it, and I stopped giving it away to places I didn't want to give it. And that created a sustainable core of resource for me to be able to continue with all the patterns of behavior that I wanted to change. And I want to be clear that these patterns of
Okay.
behavior, these changes were difficult and not easy. So
So what were some of the changes that you made?
health and nutrition, fitness, um, after reading those resources I told you about and opening my mind and focusing on my connection and positivity, my reactivity, I decided, what else can I do? And it started with nutrition. And that moved into fitness. A dear friend of mine, very much into fitness. She took me running. Remember one day, again, cigarette smoking, McDonald's eating, overweight Tim went on a 1 mile run at 5 a.m. You can imagine that was not what I usually did, but I fell in love with that feeling, with the grit of saying, I'm going to get up and make changes when I want to make them. So some of the changes became health and fitness, became a morning routine. I wake up every day now at 5 a.m. Been doing that for 4 years. Make my bed every day. I don't read as much as I'd like anymore, but my patterning was I would wake up and read a book.
So reading a book was your first thing that you did?
That was the very first thing I did in the realm of self-help. Yeah. Um, and actually, I'd like to throw this in the mix. That before even the health and nutrition, or I should say, as part of that, I decided I've never done yoga, I've never done meditation. What does that even look like? So I proactively sought out these free apps with terrible graphics, but they taught you. And in the comfort of my bedroom, I'd look in the mirror and do yoga poses and sit in meditation, and it was excruciating. I would judge myself and embarrass myself and think, "What the hell are you doing?" But I had this obstinance that said the more uncomfortable and embarrassed I was, the more I would do it. It felt right. So 2 minutes
You
of
know,
meditation
as
turned into
as we
5 and
talk
10. So
and yeah, I mean, as we talk, and since you and I have been talking for several months and getting to know each other, it's like there's sort of a relentlessness that you have that's part of your energy. You're really driven. Um, it's very powerful. Like something clicked for you. I don't know if it was the Eckhart Tolle, or it was just this guru idea, this door you walked through. But did you always have that relentlessness in you?
that's a great question. I can only answer that from where I'm standing now and say, yeah, I think that was always a part of me. But I will also say it was one that I feel I stifled, and situation I was in around me stifled and put away deep, deep places, right? So it wasn't exposed and it wasn't utilized. So maybe it came out as obstinance and you know, rebelliousness or whatnot, talking back and all that. But um, perhaps it was always there, but it didn't come out until my change. Um, and thank you. You actually, that's such a beautiful word. I did in that first year of change after I caught the running bug, if you will. The same friend brought up to me this program called 75 Hard. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, but describe it.
Yeah. This is Andy Frisella came up with this accountability program. And for 75 days straight, you don't pay any money, you don't report to anybody. It's self-accountability, but for 75 days straight, you follow a strict program. It's 2 workouts a day, gallon of water a day, 10 pages of reading a day. Stick to a healthy meal, no alcohol. And I did that. We jumped in the
Oh, so this
program.
this isn't a paid. This not a paid program.
No, no. And it's not even a fitness program. I want to make that clear, even though there's a couple workouts. The idea is that you do things that you can do, but they are outside the realm of your normal day. And so you stick to them. And if you do not complete everything to the letter by the time your head hits the pillow at night, you start over. Um, and so, and
That
so,
sounds
and so,
kind of rigid.
yeah, no, it is. But think about a guy again who's soft as jello with piles of clean clothes in his house procrastinating. On the other side of that is a guy who runs marathons, wakes up at 5 a.m., keeps his promises, budgets his money, stays healthy. You see what I'm saying? And to me, the gem of
Yeah.
all of that isn't even the rigidity or the program itself necessarily. It's literally you saying, I made this commitment to myself. And I don't care about bragging rights and I don't care what anybody else thinks. I'm going to keep that commitment. And if I don't, I start over. And in that regard, I've
Did
seen
you
and
start
talked with
over at any point?
in that first round, no. But I will tell you, I've tried to pick that up plenty of times since, and I failed every time. So it's not an easy program. But again, wouldn't you say relentless? I was in a mindset of relentlessness. And it came with a fun, friendly competition with this friend of mine. Her and I both started at the same time. We made a bet for $1, and she didn't make it. I did, and so I have a single dollar bill sitting in the glass case with 75 hard on it that she gave as an award, sitting on my shelf that I cherish. So.
That's pretty amazing. So you've been doing a lot. I mean, I've seen a picture of your transformation. You went from you were what 240 pounds? Is that
260.
260 to what
Two,
180?
two, well, 200 now, but yeah, at my lowest, I've been down to 170. That's, my height. That's not it's not a weight I enjoy being at, but yeah, it was, it was a massive physical transformation, but I say this every time I show that picture is that I'm showing what happened on the inside, mentally, spiritually, more so than physically, right?
I believe it. So what are you working on now? What are you transforming now?
This world that I'm in right now with you and Dr. Glover and coaching and clients and programs and men's work and community has absolutely opened my life, and it opened my eyes and changed my life. And so what I'm working on now, as we spoke about earlier, is my tools and my processes and my content. I have a podcast in the work, and I don't want to bring that up necessarily that it's I want accolades for it. It hasn't happened yet, but I've got a lot of efforts being put into that. I'm building digital tools to assist with that. I'm I'm putting myself out there to connect with guys. I'll be honest with you, even though I'm a certified coach and I do have clients and I do make an impact that way, one of the things that lights me up that I've seen have the most impact so far is simply connection. And so a lot of my energy is being put into connecting, having conversations, getting to know people, sharing my story. So yeah, I'm building in parts and pieces.
That's amazing.
Um, you know,
Yeah, it's all one conversation at a time.
yeah. Good.
What's your podcast called? Relentless?
If I did that, I might face some legal action from Tim Grover. Relentless was one of his books that I read during 75 Hard, and his name's Tim. So I don't know. I might have an uphill battle, but the working title, I don't even know. Maybe, I really don't. Something to do with Mr. Nice Guy. Uh, is that cheap to tap into that brand? But what it will
The
be,
nicest
Ari,
nice guy of all time.
something. But what it will be is much like what you do, and it'll be musings and conversations and descriptions and stories and shared positivity, right? On potential.
Shared positivity. Yeah, one of the things that we've talked about is the importance of positive self-talk, and you really live that. Um, what was the thing that you had asked the people on our tribe call to do?
It was to look in the mirror and tell yourself. I can't remember the exact word I used, but it was like give yourself extreme positive self-talk. Um, and the idea there, well, let me back up and just tell you how I came to this. So, but the second book I encountered after Tole was a book called Unfuck Yourself, right? And this book talks about
Hmm.
positive self-talk. And that was a catalyst moment for me. Like I said, when I look in the mirror after listening to this book and realize why in the holy hell am I talking to myself so terrible? What am I achieving by saying I'm gross and fat and ugly and unachieving and not going to, do anything? I mean, stop me if you've heard these, voices in your head too. And so I made that change, and that change is so much more than fuzzy good, feel good feelings, right? It's self-programming. Again, it's perspective shift and its potential. So, one of the things that I do is, some may call them affirmations. Again, I truly call it positive self-talk, is to look in the mirror and tell myself things that I appreciate or that I like or that I think are awesome. Sometimes it's physical. You're sexy today. That's one of my favorites. And the exercise that I had shared with that you're referring to was meant to encourage people to give themselves positive self-talk even when they don't believe it. That's the important part. A lot of people stop short and say, well, I don't feel good and I don't believe these things and I don't want to say them. So they stop. But let me give you a quick argument here, right? The engine of marketing in this world plays on the fact that repetition works. And so you'll hear that this hamburger is amazing. This hamburger will change your life. This hamburger will make you feel good. And you go, that's bullshit. I don't believe that. But then you see the ad 100 times. Next thing you know, you're in that restaurant eating that hamburger. Why is that? So the exercise was to give yourself, what was the word I used? Anyway, extreme positive self-talk.
Was it overly
Oh,
positive?
thank you. It was
Extreme
overly.
positive. Okay.
No, it was overly, but both words work, extreme or overly. The point is, if you truly do not find yourself attractive, look in the mirror and tell yourself how sexy you are every single day. Find parts of you to be happy about. Find parts to compliment yourself on. Right? We need to even the playing field here and give yourself an advantage to program yourself the way that you want. So I'm a huge proponent of positive self-talk.
Yeah, I think you said it well, and it's helping people understand that every time they have a thought, they're actually making a conscious choice to have that thought. Not that we have full control over our thoughts, but um, we actually have a lot more control than we think, and we can start programming ourselves. Anytime you're making the choice to think you're a piece of crap, and then to believe it and repeat it to yourself, you're making a choice. So that's the radical shift that I've made by having a positive self-talk practice. And I know you've done that too. But I like your delivery of it is very powerful. Um, are there any other secrets that you want to share with us to your transformation?
As if giving advice to men who want to make transformation, or others who want to make transformation.
Right, they're going to be fully changed after this podcast, obviously.
Good,
Um,
good.
but
You know,
maybe you will be someone's whack. You know, just keep that in mind.
yeah, yeah. I think I've covered a lot of the fundamentals, but I wanna highlight again the importance of taking care of your conventions, taking care of your resources. And I see these as three pillars. This is common: mental, spiritual, physical. Our bodies are the most amazing machine and tool we are ever going to encounter. If that's true, let's treat it as such, right? Again, you don't have to go run marathons. You don't have to do ridiculous Pilates and whatnot. But if you sit and stretch for a little bit, if you give yourself water first thing in the morning and hydrate it like it's supposed to be hydrated, if you feed it with media and content that is promoting your growth and change instead of social media comparisons or dramatized movies, movies and TV shows that are giving you messages that aren't true, treat yourself like you are the most amazing machine ever, because you are. So that's a holistic message I would give. And secondly, compassion over guilt. And this can encompass a lot of things, right? It encompasses the positive self-talk. Don't be bad to yourself, be good to yourself, give yourself compassion. But it also involves patient compassion to say that, oh my God, I've been running hypothetically for 6 weeks and I'm not seeing changes. Great. Keep going. 6 months, you're not seeing what you like, keep going. So resilience, patience, kindness, compassion.
I love this, and yeah, really reminding yourself that your body is a temple, basically. And your physical health, your spiritual health, mental health, these are all temples to take care of. And if we reminded ourselves about that every day, I think we'd all be better off.
Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, I learned some things about you and your process today that I'm gonna put to use, and I just really appreciate you and you coming on my show and being so open and honest, sharing the whack that changed you. This is convincing me that there's something to this idea that I came up with. So thank you for helping me today. And if you like this video, this podcast, let me know. Give me some feedback, like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.